Isaiah was a patient at the Coronado Springs Hospital, 500 miles away from East Long Beach and home. He was recovering from injuries he'd sustained during a case he didn't want, need, or ask for. To compound his troubles, he was suffering from PTSD. A lifetime of violence, tragedy, and suffering had ruined him. His body depleted, his psyche shattered, his emotional self a charred wreck. He was tortured by nightmares and racked with horrifying flashbacks. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't stay awake. Every thought a tirade of self-loathing, doubt, and pity. The idea of another case repulsed him. He didn't want to be IQ anymore. He didn't want to make a difference. He wanted to be nobody. He wanted grace. He was in this condition when he met a young man named Billy Sorensen, an escapee from the local neuropsychiatric ward. Isaiah came back to his cottage one day to find Billy stealing food from his kitchen. He was in a pathetic state, scared, on the run, and friendless. Billy believed a serial killer named William Crow was coming to Coronado Springs. Crow's presumed intention was to murder someone, identity unknown. According to Billy, Crow was the infamous AMSAC killer, so called by the press because he disposed of his 17 victims at the convergence of the American and Sacramento rivers. Crow was on a 9-year killing spree, and the police had yet to identify him. Billy wanted help bringing him down. Isaiah soon learned Billy was not a reliable source. He was an alarmist and had a history of making up stories and crying wolf. The whole town knew about him. Isaiah wanted no part of it. This was exactly the kind of thing he'd vowed to stay away from. No more falling into the sewer with the filth and the vermin, covered in the blood and sludge, never to be clean again. He told Billy no. He told himself he'd take a look. That was all. Isaiah interrogated Billy at length. He laboriously checked the kid's story and went through a raft of police and FBI computer files Billy downloaded from his mother's laptop. She was an assistant district attorney. Isaiah carefully examined the data, reluctantly concluding Billy's story was true. Why is this your business? Isaiah thought. Self-preservation demanded he walk away. But he didn't. Couldn't. The local sheriff didn't believe the story, and Crow would kill another innocent. He had to be found. He had to be caught. The case was insanely harrowing. Isaiah came close to death several times, closer than he ever had before. He became a fugitive and contemplated suicide. He was kidnapped by outlaws. A gale nearly blew him off a cliff face. He had a knife fight in the middle of a bonfire. He crashed a motorcycle and was nearly crushed by an avalanche, and in the midst of this maelstrom, a stinging irony revealed itself. The PTSD symptoms had virtually disappeared. The danger, the adrenaline, the mental machinations and extreme physical demands abated the illness. But when the case ended, the symptoms roared back and flattened him. Now here he was in the hospital contemplating his future. There were only two choices: to be sick again or to resume the work that made him sick. "I'll be sick," he said, as he lay there on the gurney. He'd never return to the cesspool. He would get out of here and go someplace where there was peace, where no one knew him, where there was no IQ, where there was no I. A nurse had just left his room. Isaiah was curled in the crisp hospital sheets. He should have asked her for more meds. Something to make him sleep and escape his misery, while images of grace strobed in and out of his mind. They lived together briefly. In the late afternoon, she'd set up her easel in the backyard. She said the light was warmer and softer when the sun set and rose. Isaiah observed her from the window. She stood at her easel, perfectly still, like an egret waiting in a tide pool. Long minutes passed. She wasn't restless, and she didn't fidget. He admired her humility, knowing the world changed in its own good time. They did small things. Cooked, shopped, went for walks, talked about nothing, sat on the stoop and drank cold beers and read to each other lying in bed. Things he immediately forgot, but that now in retrospect seemed so meaningful and sweet.